Well, I told you that functions can do three things. They can take some input, they can do some work, and they can give some output. Here on lines 13 through 16, we've done some work. Here on line 17, we've given some output. On lines 22 through 24, we've processed the result of the function. But how do we take some input? Well, let's look at how we give input to another function. We're going to call the alert function again. And you'll notice in between these parentheses, we pass a message. Well, let's try the prompt function. Prompt. And this one tells us that I can actually give it two pieces of information, a message and a default. So I could say hello, and I could say auto-generated text. And so I can give this one two pieces of information. But notice how I did that. I gave it one piece of information, and then I put a comma, and then I gave it a second piece of information. Well, let's see if we could do that with our function. So I'm going to delete those two things. And let me just give it two numbers. I'm going to give it 12 and 13. Let's save our program and let's go run it. All right. So we'll reload our page. Oh, let me get rid of the breakpoint. And it says 30. And if we look at our console, we don't have any errors. We'll reload the page, it said 30, and we'll go back over to our code. Okay, so it didn't use 12 and 13 as its input numbers. Why on earth was that? Well, if you look at it, this function is set up to use those two numbers and return the results. But the numbers it's using are the variables that we just referenced on line 13 and 14. When we look at our function, how to call it, we put two numbers here in between the parentheses and with a comma, separating them. So if we want to receive that as input into our function, then we need to define it up here between these parentheses. So we can say num1 and num2. So what we're doing is we're saying I will take a number as an input and then a comma, and then I'm going to take another number as an input. Because we're taking inputs, we probably don't need these lines of code anymore. So now we want our result to be the result of num1 and num2. So we're saying when someone calls our function, they're going to give us two pieces of information separated by a comma. Whoops, separated by a comma. I want to take those two pieces of information, add them together, and return the result. So now when we call this, it should take the result of 12 and 13, return them, and then we'll alert that. So if we save this and we come over here, we get 25, which is what we expected. But let's come over here to our sources. We'll put a breakpoint on line 21 and we'll reload the page. And it says, okay, we're about to add two numbers. If we hit the next button, we are now in our function. If you hover over num1, you can see it's 12. And why is it 12? Well, because we put 12 in the first slot. This function has no idea what we're going to put in the slot, but it says whatever they put in the first slot, call it num1. So they put 12 there, and we're going to reference it by the name num1. In num2, they put 13, and we're going to reference it by the name num2. How do we know it's num2? Because they put it in the second position. So down here when we called it, because we put 12 first, it's num1. Because we put 13 second, it's num2. Now we're going to take the result of those and add them. So num1 is 12, num2 is 13. We hit next, and our result is 25. We return that result, and now our variable called myResult holds 25. And now we can alert myResult, and we get 25, which is exactly what we would expect.